Hey, Scribe Sarah here, and welcome back to the Right Podcast. Today, I have a very special treat for you. I'm joined by the brilliant Becca Syme, author, success coach, and founder of the Better, Faster Academy, and the powerhouse behind Writer You Need to Quit. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the advice out there about how to make it as an author, or you've wondered why some strategies seem to work wonders for others but not for you, this episode is going to be game changing. Becca and I dive into different phases of building a sustainable author business, how to honor your own strengths and decision making style, and why it's absolutely okay to quit the things that aren't serving you. Plus, we talk about the exciting new edition of her best-selling book, Writer You Need to Quit, which is now live on Kickstarter. And let me tell you, it's packed with even more clarity and mindset shifting wisdom than ever. So grab a cuppa, get cozy, and let's get into it. Today on the Right Podcast, I am talking to author success coach Becca Syme. Welcome, Becca.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I so appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to talk to us today.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate it. I
yeah,
appreciate it. I love podcasts, so I'm here for it.
they are. They're great, aren't they? You were actually in
Yeah.
Australia in 2023 and I missed you.
Yeah, I was. I'm hoping to go back. I love the RWA Australia conference so much, and it moves around every year. So I get to be in a different Australian city every time I go, and it's probably my favorite week of the year.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's a great community of authors here we have. So,
Yeah.
you have a Kickstarter project happening at the moment for
Uh-huh.
a new edition of your nonfiction book, Writer, You Need to Quit. Great title, by
Yeah.
the way.
Thank you.
So, tell us about this project. How's it going for you?
Yeah, I love Kickstarters, and that we've done this is our third launched Kickstarter. We have a couple more in the works. But I love Kickstarter because it's such a community oriented experience. Like you kind of get everybody headed in the same direction and thinking about the same topic for kind of like a long period of time. We did 36 days, I think, on this one of just like focused discussion about what it takes to be a successful author in 2025. The first book, Dear Writer, You Need to Quit, the original was from 2017, which was still kind of the middle of the gold rush. And so I decided to write a new version that was how would I approach this topic in 2025 of like, what do we need to quit? What do we need to keep? And what do we need to question in order to be successful in 2025? So it feels like really appropriate for kind of the transition that we're in right now in the industry. And then also just like I love Kickstarters, so I'm having a great time.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, I certainly wrote my first book in 2016, published in 2017, and
Nice.
absolutely agree. Like things have changed so much since then.
Yeah, so much,
Yeah.
so much. And to a point where those of us who've been in the industry that long and even longer, it almost doesn't feel like the same industry that it felt like. And kind of the markers that I use in my head are like 2010 and then 2019. So that kind of 9 years of independent publishing is new. Not a lot of people know what it is. A lot of people are just tentatively jumping in the pool. We kind of had the adoption curve of independent publishing disruption in 2019. And once we hit that static point where it's like, okay, there's now more writers than we really can like feasibly have in the pool in terms of like now there's a lot of everybody's talking and it's no longer a block party, right? It's multiple block parties of everybody talking, and then it becomes sort of cacophonous. So then it becomes the how do we curate this?
Mm.
And the established industry that we get from 2019 and onward of that combo of trad pub and indie pub is now how do we curate the massive amount of books that are available and get the readers the books in their hands? Because from a reader perspective, and I think this is actually really important, from a reader perspective, it's not so saturated that they are having an easy time finding great books for them, right? It's saturated in a way that makes finding great books more difficult than it has been in the past, which is part of why TikTok became so popular as a curation engine. So I think that understanding that the saturation point doesn't have to be a downside for us. Like it's possible for readers to still need what we have. And then our goal becomes how do I find the readers that want to read what I'm producing? And then the question is, are there enough of them to make me satisfied with the experience that I'm having as a writer? And those are all really different questions from the questions we were asking in 2010 and 2017 and 2022, just different. It changes all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is it mostly marketing strategies in this book, or is there some craft? Tell us about what we get.
So, a lot of what I do is talk about the industry itself and kind of understanding what the rules are that we play by. So, it has marketing implications, it has craft implications, it has individual decision making implications. I think most of my books focus on like, how do I be a better decision maker as a writer? How do I either understand myself better, understand the industry better, understand the process of writing better, and then how do I have more objective truth about, so just as a for instance,
Mm.
more objective truth about the writing craft means that if I'm a person who edits as I go, I don't feel guilty about it. Even though there are all kinds of people who are like, ah, don't edit as you go, it's so evil. But if you understand objectively, there's nothing evil about editing as you go. It's what purpose is it serving for you? Because for some people, editing as you go makes them write amazing books and it makes them write them as quickly as they're capable of writing. So if that's how you get to your best product as a writer, then you let yourself do that because you know enough now objectively about the writing brain that you don't feel guilty if you don't write every day. You don't feel guilty if you edit as you go, if you don't outline, if you do outline, if you discovery draft, right? Like all of these things that we create rules infrastructures around aren't actually beneficial because there's no such thing as a hard and fast rule in writing. But you have to kind of understand objectively what's going on in the human brain, in the industry, in craft, in marketing, to know why that is the case.
I love that permission to do it your way.
Yep.
We aren't just all cookie cutters and we don't all write the same thing and the same way. So absolutely love that. A lot of the oldest advice has just been you just got to sit in that chair and look at a blank
Yep.
screen. It doesn't
Butt
work.
in chair, hands on keyboard, right? Like we have those old methodologies that certainly appealed to a median of writers, or they wouldn't have been as repeated as they were. But in terms of like, so if you've ever done academic research before, you know that the way that they handle, can we say this is true or not, is does it apply to 60 plus percent, like 68.7 or percent or whatever it is, that is the standard deviation, right? Like, does it apply to a large enough portion of the sample set that we can say we're pretty sure it's way more than 50%? Like, is this true is different from is it majority?
Yeah.
And when you say like maybe butt and chair hands on keyboard works for 50% of writers, but if you're looking at the 200,000 writers in the world who are trying to be professionals at it, that means 100,000 people are not butt in chair, hands on keyboard people.
Mhm.
So if we're all trying to take advice from that, that particular type of advice, but it doesn't actually apply to us, and there's a better kind of advice that we could be taking, knowing that you have the freedom, not just to say, like, oh yeah, you don't have to write every day, honey. It's okay. You can do whatever you want. Like we get that feeling sometimes from like customized advice. But no, if you are not a write everyday person, there's a really good reason for it. It is success architecture in your head. There's a different way for you to be successful. And if you can understand what that other way is, then you can hold yourself accountable still to a standard, but it won't be the butt and chair hands on keyboard standard. It'll be face the manuscript every day standard and ask, can I write the next sentence? And if you can, do, and if you can't, go figure out why you can't. And it
Yeah,
may take a bunch of thinking, and that's okay.
that's it. That's amazing. Brilliant. So you've coached a lot of authors in your career.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what kind of advice have you given them over the years?
Yeah, so much of the advice is you have to listen to yourself.
Mm.
Like a lot of us really struggle to kind of internalize our intuition in a way that's helpful because we hear other people be so certain. Like, write every day is just one, don't edit as you go is another, thinking is bad is another. But for some people, writing fast is lazy is another, right? And you might be a fast writer who's always heard slow is better.
Mm.
And so you've internalized this judgment about fast writing. Well, it turns out that there's a whole segment of people for whom fast writing is the best writing they can produce. But then there's a whole segment of people for whom slow writing is the best writing that they can produce. And guess what happens? You will naturally do the one that is right for you. And then your judgment of whether you should be doing it or not is usually what keeps you from honoring whatever your natural intuition is. And so much of our natural intuition is the thing that we should actually be listening to because it's helping us align with the success architecture that's inside of our brains already. Like
Mm.
if you're a person who needs to think a lot before you write, you will want to think before you write. Like it will not be I really want to write fast and I can write fast, but I should write slow. No, it will be, I really want to write fast because I feel like I should be writing fast, but it turns out I produce better when I am slow and I know I am slow. I just don't love being slow because I would rather be this, what this other person is. But no, you would rather write well. You
Mm.
would rather write the way that's the best for you to write. And if that is a slower process, then there's a benefit to the slow process because writing faster isn't necessarily going to make you as an individual write better. But it's hard for people to trust that when they don't feel secure about their own process internally.
Yeah, I've written 9 novels, and I used to be able to turn them out sort of 2 a year in the early days. But then as I got more published, there was so much more marketing and business
Yep.
side. And now I'm
Yeah.
so distracted by the marketing and the business side that I kind of forget to do the writing.
Yep. Yep, which is the downside of selling, right? Like the downside of selling is now you gotta sell. Like when I have more products and I can sell them, I either have to let them sit there and take a chance that they won't sell, or I have to be willing to market them. There isn't really another option, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you actually do have a course called Write Better Faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so for someone like myself, would that be beneficial to, get in the headspace of writing and just being able to sit down and write more? Um,
It depends on who you are because for like Write Better Faster is a customizable productivity
mm,
course. So it's designed to because we have coaches inside the course who read all of your answers and then ask you questions if necessary. And then you do a coaching session at the end of the course that so the course is really designed for you as an individual to get your best productive self out of that, the process. Um, so it would really depend on if you were already writing as fast as it's reasonable to expect yourself to write. So if you've already kind of jumped over all the hurdles that are keeping you from writing, then you probably won't write any faster, but you will get the other productivity help in terms of like, are there things you can quit doing? Are there ways you're expecting yourself to show up that are unreasonable? Do you need some support around understanding how your brain functions? Do you need permission to stop doing that volunteer job? Do you
mm,
need permission to quit being on social media? Do you need, like, there's all these things. But yeah, typically most people, when they come in to write better faster, they do write faster. It does depend on the person because some of us are at our absolute peak of productivity, but we still feel like we should be able to write faster. So
mm,
sometimes there's like a well, we've been through all of the options and it doesn't look like there's anything else we can do. So now we have to work on your feeling that you're not doing good enough. And then that becomes the goal, right? Is to help you feel better about the productivity that you already have and recognize what's under that desire to write faster.
Yeah, amazing. I often think that if I could just have a whole month with nothing on my calendar, that I just went to a cabin in the woods somewhere and I
You
could,
might be able to, though. Like
yeah,
it might actually work for you if that's your intuition, right? Like if part of what slows you down is that you have family obligations and there's kids that need to go to school in the morning and kids that need cooking and kids that, et cetera, and you're the primary person who's doing that work, then yeah, if you could be without your children for a month, you would definitely get more work done. You might sleep more, you might sleep better. But also we can find pockets of that in your day-to-day life. And sometimes, and that's what we do sometimes in Write Better Faster, where it's like, okay, some of you and some of you listening might be in this place. Some of you are taking too much responsibility in your household, and you need to either ask your partner or hire help or ask your family or ask a friend or trade, carpool days with somebody or something to try to get yourself more space. And you need somebody who will listen to your objections and take them seriously, and then also find ways around whatever you haven't tried to fix yet. But we find that there are some really consistent ways that when that's your first instinct, it's like, oh no, you would probably do a lot better if you just had no responsibilities in the house. But if that's not a reasonable ask, it's like, here, take the kids for a month and I'm going to go, write a book for a month. If that's not a reasonable ask, there may be a weekend or a week or, every other night during the week or every other morning or something like that that we could carve out for you.
Mm. I host a writing retreat every year, or sometimes a couple of
Perfect.
times a year. And it's just that getting out, like, for example, I can't write in this room because this is where I do my podcasting, this is the business. And so
Yep.
if I sit here, I feel like I need to be doing something related to that.
Yep.
So when we go away, like for example, in 2026, we're going to Queenstown in New Zealand and different scenery, different people, and being with the other writers, we all feed on each other's energy. So
Yep.
when it's like, okay, time to open up the laptop and write now, we're not all distracted by but social media. So,
Yep. 100%. It's almost like body doubling, right? Like it's that writing with other people can really help some people, and that helps with focus.
yes, yes, amazing. So you have written quite a few other nonfiction books.
Mhm.
Where would you recommend people kind of start? Can we just pick one of those and go with it,
Mhm.
or should you start somewhere?
Yeah, I would read the titles because there are a couple of them that are really helpful for specific problems. Like there's one about burnout. There's one about writer's block. There's one about being an intuitive writer, which if you are intuitive and you don't know how to trust it, that's always a good one to read. But if you don't know where else to start, you can start with A Dear Writer You Need to Quit, which was the original 2017, I think, 2018 book that kind of started all of this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. And now you do have courses and you've
Mhm.
actually got coaches. Have you trained these coaches to teach
Mhm.
your strategies?
Yeah, in fact, we now have the Write Better Faster course is now taught on Susan. Susan's one of our coaches. She teaches it on her own whole platform now because she was doing so much of the work. We're like, well, you should be making the majority of the money from this. Like, so I don't go into that course when she teaches it. I only do the course that's on our platform. And then we have other coaches who do intuitive writing and burnout stuff. And we have a traditional publishing support group on the Patreon for those who are in trad or going in a trad direction. We have marketing coaching. And then almost all of our coaches are also certified strengths coaches, Clifton Strengths, which is the personality success metric that we use. So yeah, we have many coaches and they do many things, and we try to be as generally useful as we can, but in like specific topics.
Yeah. So I know that getting coaching is quite often a personal, preference on you work better with this person than another. So if
Mhm.
someone was really struggling, they could come to you and you kind of find the best coach for them and their what they need.
Yeah, we do that a lot, either depending on like each of the coaches kind of has a specialty, which you'll see on their bio pages. But so if you're struggling with burnout, Nikki is the best person to go to because she coaches that a lot. And Susan is our intuitive coach, and Terry is number one ideation. So he does a lot of like if you're stuck or you need brainstorming or you've tried everything that you could try, he's the person who can jolt you out of those loops. And Samara and Ronnie both have trad pub experience, and so does Crystal, and me as well. So, like, if you have traditional publishing questions, we can help you navigate those things. And then Ronnie is health and wellness certified now, so she's doing that. And Samara, Nikki, and Susan all have ADHD work that they do with clients. So, like, everybody kind of has a specialty that we can orient you towards. But
Mm.
then, in addition to that, everybody has their own strengths. So if you have a particular set of strengths and you want us to match you with somebody who is like, I need somebody who's also high empathy, like we've got that. We have a high achiever, we have a high strategic, we have a high adaptability, right? Like we kind of have all the bases covered for helping people with their strengths as well.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
do you only get fiction writers coming to you? Would these strategies apply for non?
Anybody.
Yeah, anyone who's
Yeah,
writing.
anybody. We actually coach screenwriters. We have some poets and songwriters as well, children's books, middle grade and YA as well, but nonfiction. And I'm doing increasingly more nonfiction work in the recent past, just because as I have started to do branch out from just doing like the independent publishing. When you get into New York spaces and trad pub spaces, you're also more likely to hit more nonfiction writers at those conferences. And so that's been great as well. But yeah, we can really coach any creative person at this point. But fiction writers are kind of the original, like the original recipe, BFA stuff. So fiction is our bread and butter, but we can do any genre. Yeah.
Amazing. So the current Kickstarter project that you've got, so it is the second edition of Writer You Need to Quit. I've noticed you've got some other add-ons and decks and tools. Tell us more about that. That's super exciting.
Yeah, we try to do a deck for every Kickstarter because we found that people really like to have things, like they like to hold things. And the decks, I wish I had one of the old ones in front of me, but we did a stuck list, like how if when you're stuck, how do you get unstuck? We did an energy management deck called the Energy Pennies deck. And then this one is called the Author Business Phases deck, and it's meant to help you understand the difference between like there are five very distinct and separate phases of the author career. And when you're in like research and development, like you make different decisions and have different challenges than someone who's in a mature business phase would have. And it's really important to ask yourself the right questions for the phase that you're in, because the business phases model is a model for business that transcends publishing. It's something that is taught in MBAs and industrial and organizational psych all over the world. It is a recognizable model, but it is the organizational growth curve. But what happens is if we don't have a background in those things, we have not heard about, well, this is a normal thing that happens in this phase of your business, which if you've done a lot of business coaching, you'll see that there's just some consistent problems that everybody has when they do their initial growth phase, right? When they build the infrastructure, these are the consistent problems people have. When they have infrastructure growth, these are the consistent problems. When you have a mature business, these are the consistent problems. So we tried to make this tool to help people problem solve and make decisions in their different phases, even if they don't happen to have an MBA or a background in industrial psychology. So hopefully that will be helpful. We're using some Enneagram personality stuff in that as well, working with Claire Taylor from The Liberated Writer. So I'm really excited about that.
Wow. So you just touched on phases. I'd love if you could just tell us what they all are. So you said there's five phases.
Mhm.
So the first one was,
Research and development, and that's where a significantly high portion of writers are in R&D. And the way that you get out of R&D is you make 100% of your investment plus 100% profit.
yeah.
So once you're consistently hitting a place where you're making 100% profit and you know you have enough growth for your for the likelihood that you will continue to make profit moving forward, like you've hit some demand pockets, then you hit initial growth phase. And that is you are early in the demand pocket, so you're having to do a lot of how do I find more of this? How do I get more people interested? And then once you hit infrastructure, which is phase three, you start to have to invest that money into allowing the business to produce more of it for you. So often with infrastructure, you either have to make products that you can sell, or you have to make like audiobooks or translations that create a whole new revenue stream, which anything that is an income stream is going to require work. So usually what happens is authors aren't able to do the work all themselves when they hit the infrastructure phase and they have to start hiring people for support. And then infrastructure should produce growth. So if infrastructure starts to kill you, then you're headed back towards phase two again, and we've got to get rid of some of that infrastructure and level back out. But if the infrastructure produces growth, you go into phase four, which is growth from infrastructure. And then you'll go back and forth between building more infrastructure and making that infrastructure grow, building more and making it grow, building more and making it grow. And then at a certain point, you hit mature business, which is phase five, after you've gone through three and four as many times as you're going to go through them. But phase five means you don't grow significantly anymore. Like you'll hit a point where you're only going to grow 5 or 10, maybe 20% on the high side year over year. And you're also probably going to lose 5 or 10 or maybe 20% of your revenue at any one point. And then the goal is to figure out, am I overspending? Am I, is there more work I could do? Is there more infrastructure growth that could happen? Or am I over expecting, right? Am I over budgeting? And so phase five is really about managing a mature business. And if you think about the decisions that are necessary when you're making six or $700,000 a year, they are not the same things you have to worry about when you're making not 100% in profit over your expenses yet, right? So I think we see a lot of scattershot advice that we assume will work at all times, but we don't realize that the majority of advice that we're seeing about marketing and business is really aimed towards those middle business phases, with the assumption that doing all of this infrastructure building is clearly going to make you grow. Well, you don't know if you have demand for your product yet.
Mhm.
So if you can't figure out how to find demand for the product and get yourself out of that space where you're not making profit yet, then it's better to spend the time in research and development, really tweaking and fine tuning and getting yourself to a place where you're consistently producing something that readers want to read and you have access to the readers, rather than trying to operate a business as though you already have a known demand for it. And so a lot of the reason for this tool is just to say, you're probably going to need to say no to most of the stuff that you think you should be saying yes to because it's just not for you yet.
Yeah, I do have writers who come to me and they've only written and published, self-published one book. And they're like, so I need to run Facebook ads to this book and I need to get translations and I need to get it in audio. I'm like, it's only one book. So your
No.
your advice to that person would be to write more books?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes running Facebook ads or running AMS ads is not a bad thing, but that's assuming that you have not released the book yet, or assuming that you have not run ads to it yet. So, like if you have a book that you've had out for 2 or 3 years, we don't need to do anything to that book. We need to write the next book and get working on. Don't try to run 15 campaigns on that one book. We got to get you more books out. And then as we are releasing, we're looking for those demand pockets that are much easier to find when the book is brand new.
Mhm.
It's easier to get an idea for demand when you can advertise a new book just because of the way that the industry works. But I think a lot of authors want to try to, why is this book not selling? Why is this book not selling? And this is why we have this catchphrase that we use a lot, which is Loki's in charge of the industry. Like we want Captain America to be in charge. We want there to be a reason. We want there to be a campaign we can run. We want there to be a, goodwill out, good books will always sell. Like we want all of those things to be true. But the reality is most of what happens in the industry doesn't make any sense unless you can analyze from like an extremely objective place with a lot of data that we don't have access to. It's so much easier to say, okay, well, I've given it a good faith effort. Loki's in charge, which means I got to beat Loki. So I have to release the next book and try to gain some momentum there and see if I can make it work instead of feeling like, well, my book didn't sell. And so I'm doing all of these things wrong and I've failed horribly at it. Somebody like me with a veteran perspective would look at it and say, oh, no, you're fine. Like you did everything you could. Loki's in charge. Let's work on the next book. There's no reason that one launch that didn't go well, or two or three or five or 10 launches that didn't go well, are going to predict that no launch will ever go well. It's just every single time you have a new chance to make new luck, you have to believe that you can, or eventually you're going to lose your hope to do this. And in a competitive, hyper competitive entertainment industry, this is not the kind of business that we think it is. This is not an easy business to succeed in. It's a very difficult business to succeed in, but you are the most likely to succeed if you continue to take shots on goal because you don't let yourself get too discouraged by things not working the way that you think they could have worked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend your first book is out there? It's had a few sales. Would you recommend continuing in a series or maybe doing something differently?
Yeah, I would always want to look at the book, right? Like I would always want to see um is there a reasonable expectation that more books in the series could sell?
Yeah.
So the more it looks like other things in the market, the more easily packaged it is, the more clear the packaging is, the more likely it is that if you continue to write and you do get some eyeballs on the first or second or third book, that there's a likelihood that sales will happen just because in a crowded marketplace, clear packaging and like very, very clear and easy decisions for people, knowing what readers want is the best way to sell. But if you're writing a book that has unclear packaging, that has kind of a difficult or muddled genre or something like that, I might ask someone, like, do you think you could write something that has a more clear, like a more simple or clear, package or genre expectation or trope or something like that. And if they say no, then I would say, yep, go ahead and keep writing in that series because there's always a possibility that you've latched onto something that is just cross genre enough that it will create its own demand for something, but you really won't know until you get three books in. But if they feel like they could do something that's more clear or easier to market, then I would say it's probably the best idea to do that. Not that you have to write to market, but just that it is definitely easier to sell things that have a more clear competitive, like a comp, we call it, right? Like if my book has no comps, I don't know how to sell it because I don't know how to tell which readers will want it because readers really do have reader psychology, like they
Yes.
have consumer psychology, and they are looking for very specific cues that tell them whether they'll like a book or not. And so not having any comps is not necessarily a great thing when it comes to marketing because it just becomes really difficult to sell.
Mm.
So if they were clear in their packaging, if they have a clear trope or a clear genre, they feel like they could easily give me some comp authors or comp books, then I would for sure say, don't quit this until you've got 3 books in, and then you've given a good faith effort at like getting a book bub or putting it in KU and running some AMS ads or something where you're trying to increase discovery a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And I loved what you were saying about Loki. And, I remember a few years ago before Fourth Wing, dragons weren't in. So
Yep.
it would have been hard to sell a dragon book. But as soon as that one came out, now everything's about dragons. So
Yep.
a lot of it is the
Yep.
timing.
It's so much about timing. And that's why, like you said about Loki, this is why we talk about Loki at all, is that you don't know if you're early or late in a dragon trend, if you're writing dragons. All you know is my first 2 dragon books didn't sell. Okay, great. Do you love writing dragons? Yep. All right. Do you need to pay the bills in order, like, to pay the bills with writing in order to live? If the answer is yes, then I would say, great. If you're currently making money, keep writing what you're writing. If you're not making money yet, get a part-time job to support yourself or find some money from somewhere to support yourself. Take the financial pressure off your writing and then wait. I just don't think enough people realize that making a full-time living as a writer can be really hard and really painful. Like, you don't want to do that unless you love it and you thrive doing it. Otherwise, you want it to be a part-time job for you. You want the financial pressure to be somewhere other than the writing so that you can have the writing do for you what you want it to do. You can still have plenty of sales, fame, glory, like the number of part-time authors in past history who have been extremely wealthy and famous at some point in their careers is a significant number.
Mhm.
Being a part-time writer is not some kind of like downside for many, but I'm a part-time fiction author and I love it. I don't want fiction to become my full-time job. It's too much pressure. It makes me dislike, it becomes a job at that point. It makes me dislike the writing. Having fiction writing as a part-time job is a better fit for me because of my brain chemistry. And that's the way an awful lot of people are, but we don't talk about that often enough. So yeah, I'm a person who's like, let the game be what it is, the game of publishing be what it is, and do everything you can do to enjoy the process. And if you're not enjoying it, please change something because Loki is in charge on every level, not just in research and development. Loki's in charge in all phases. And what is great can turn on you, and what seems like it would be great can be really awful, and vice versa, right? So, I take your joy where you can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think you've nailed it there. We write because we have a passion for writing. But like you said, as soon as it becomes a job and we have
It's a
all
job.
that stress on it, yeah, I've definitely been in that stage where I'm like, I just don't feel like it. I'm not
Yep.
loving the story anymore and or the
Yeah.
genre, that sort of thing. And we put too much pressure on ourselves. And yeah, there's nothing wrong. I tell this to a lot of people, there are easier ways to make money. And you said the exact same thing. And there
Yep.
is nothing wrong with you have to pay bills. I've heard Elizabeth Gilbert say it too quite often.
Yes.
Don't put that stress on your writing. It's your creativity. It's your, universe, God-given gift. Like, don't make it have to work, that hard.
100%. 100% co-sign that. My boyfriend, who's also a writer, has this thing that he puts on his refrigerator that's just handwritten on his refrigerator, and it says part-time writer, full-time creative. And
Yes.
his mentality is very much like, I own the fact that I have a full-time job somewhere else, and I don't care about that because when I am a creative person. I am a writer. I'm an author all the time. I am a professional author at all times, even when I'm not making a full-time living from writing. Because some of us are just not wired to make a full-time living from writing. It will kill our creativity. And then that will not be the dream that we thought it would be. Because if I'm honest about what most of us want to just be independently wealthy so that we can do the writing however we want to do it in whatever way would bring the most people to us. We don't actually want the life of being a professional writer because professional writers don't get to choose what they write a lot of the time. Professional writers don't get to choose not to write. They don't get to choose, like, there's so much that gets decided for you in the later phases of business. And the most common thing we see when people are in the later business phases is that they wish they could go back to phase one because of the freedom that you have when your finances are not dependent on your creativity and it becomes a big stressor at some point. So I think some of us who are in phase one are like, oh, I got to get out of phase one because I'm not a real writer yet. And I'm like, oh, no, you're a real writer at every phase. You're a real writer before you put words on the page. You're a real writer. Like you're a real writer because you are in your brain a real writer. Making money from writing, like there are so many people who don't make the money they should be making as creative people because again Loki's in charge, like they didn't get the right luck and timing on their side when they should have because they were that talented. And that doesn't mean that they're not a real writer, but it does mean life will be harder, right? And so I think what a lot of us are wanting and hoping for is this place that we can exist where there's less pressure on the creativity. And so you got to really think about whether that is full-time writing or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love everything you said. It's amazing. So with the Kickstarter bundle, you've got all these extras. If people are watching this after the Kickstarter's ended, are they still able to get all those other goodies?
Yeah, I do think we're going to do late pledges for a little bit afterward. I got to chat with Kickstarter a little bit and see what that's going to work because we're recording before the Kickstarter ends. And so I still need to find out from them how that will go. But I think we're going to do late pledges for a little bit just to let people, there's two particular things I want to make sure people get because we're not going to offer them again. One is the special edition of the paperback, and I want to make sure everybody who wants one has gotten one because we were doing like sprayed edges and embossed covers and all that stuff, and you won't be able to buy those from like Amazon or whatever, right? So that, and then we also have a vinyl album that we're doing that is that, which I'm super excited about because I'm such a music nerd, but we're doing a vinyl album of the audio of like an abridged audio version of this book. And so you'll get an audiobook code of the full audiobook, and then I'm going to make a special abridged version just for the vinyl. And so those two things we're only going to make available on this Kickstarter. So I want to make sure that people have a chance to grab them, but everything else should be available at other times. We sell a lot of our digital deck stuff on our Patreon. So like you can buy the Stuck List and the Energy Pennies cards on the Patreon in digital form. So like most of the information will be available. It's just those physical items won't. But you'll be able to get like the ebooks and audiobooks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Amazing. So when we're looking for those links, is it on your website? Somewhere
Yep.
easy for everyone to go?
Yeah, the easiest place is betterfasteracademy.com/links. And then if we don't have the Kickstarter available anymore and the tour stop game is done, then we'll replace that with, either the pre-order for the book or something like that. So, but yeah, there will be a betterfasteracademy.com/links is the place to go. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
all this information. I'm feeling supported by you even from
Oh, good.
just hearing, just going, it's okay, you're doing the best for the stage you're in. You're doing really well. And
Yeah.
really hope that the viewers and the listeners out there are feeling that from you as well, which I'm sure they are. But that has just
Good.
been an amazing conversation. I am definitely jumping over into Kickstarter right now and getting all of those
Oh,
goodies,
thank you.
especially the special edition. I love me some special editions.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this. Like I never thought I would be because I back everybody's fiction Kickstarters where they have their special editions and I'm like, "Oh, the gold foil and the embossed covers." And I'm like, "But I'll never do that." And then I met somebody at a conference who was like, "Oh, but we could do that for your books too." And I was like, "I'm listening." So we're gonna do that.
I love it. Absolutely. Well, that has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Becca.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wasn't that just so validating? I always love talking with Becca. Her insights are so grounded, so encouraging, and honestly, a breath of fresh air in an industry that can sometimes feel overwhelming. I hope today's episode gave you permission to trust yourself more deeply, to question the one size fits all advice, and to lean into the kind of author business that actually fits you, your strengths, your goals, your life. If you loved what Becca shared today, make sure to check out everything she offers at betterfasteracademy.com/links. And yes, there's still time to get in on Writer You Need to Quit Kickstarter campaign. Late pledges are open, so if you miss the original deadline, don't worry, you can still grab your copy and those amazing extras. And hey, if you're looking for more tools to build your writing life with confidence and clarity, don't forget to grab your free brainstorming fun sheet over at serenadepublishing.com. It's a fun, powerful way to get focused and re inspired about your current project. Thanks for being here with me today. I'll see you next week. And until then, keep writing, keep dreaming, and remember that your words matter. Bye for now.